Here it is, guys. It says the Washington Post put out this article. Parents claim they have the right to shape their their kids' school curriculum. They don't. That's right. The government, the state, they're going to make the decisions for you. See, there's an important scripture. Proverbs 22:6 says, train up a child in the way he should go, and when he is old, he will not depart from it. So you have these public schools, which are, I talk about all the time, and this article right here just confirms it. They're just indoctrination camps. It's not an education. You're only learning one side. See, think about this. When we put our kids in public schools, they're in their, 30, 40 hours a week? So they're learning the secular side of things, and then when we get home, the kids keep watching TV, and so you probably have another 10 to 14 hours or 10 to 15 hours. So you've got anywhere between 50 to 60 hours of being indoctrinated into the secular system, and then we go to the church for an hour on the weekend, and then we wonder why our kids are getting away from the church. They no longer believe it. It's because of this garbage that's being put out there. But we're going to go through. We're going to read this article. We're going to pick it apart, and we're just going to kind of spin this from a Christian point of view. So I'm going to go through this article. I'm not trying to make any political statements here. I'm just explaining this is what's happened. This article confirms it right here. Kids are being indoctrinated and kids aren't being educated about both sides of the view. So let's dive into this. Parents claim they have the right to shape their kids' school curriculum. They don't. That should be horrific for any parent. So here it is. In their search for issues that will deliver Congress in 2022, and here it is, this article just pinning conservatives, whatever. I know both people on both sides of the political spectrum that have an issue with the public school system. But this is obviously a biased article. But again, I'm not going to go into that. But I'm just going to kind of show you what's happening here. We're going to go some of the things that the public school system teaches and kind of go from there. So let's jump into this. Conservatives have begun to circle around the cause of parents' rights. In Indiana, Republican Attorney General Todd Rokita recently introduced a Parents' Bill of Rights, which asserts that education policy and curriculum should accurately reflect the values of Indiana families. In Florida, the legislature passed an even more comprehensive bill assuring that the state and its public schools cannot infringe on the fundamental rights of parents. A growing number of states are allowing parents to sue districts that teach banned concepts. And in Virginia, Republican Glenn Youngkin has made parents' rights a centerpiece of his campaign for governor, staging Parents Matter rallies and declaring, "I believe parents should be in charge of their kids' education." Given this frenzy, one might reasonably conclude that radicals, and here they are again, are out to curtail the established rights that Americans have over their educational sphere. It should be it should be the parents' rights. I pay my taxes, so I should get to choose what my kids are being taught. And you'll hear the argument, oh, just stick your kids into a public school, which I do, but that's $800 to $1,000 a month. I should be able to take my taxes that are going towards the public school system and put my kid where I want to put them. That's the issue here. Yet what's actually radical here is the assertion of parental powers that have never previously existed. This is not to say that parents should have no influence over how their children are taught, but common law and case law in the United States have long supported the idea that education should prepare young people to think for themselves, even if that runs counter to wishes of parents. And it's interesting that you talk about that, think for themselves. We're going to go through a couple of articles here, and you're going to see kids can't think for themselves because they're being indoctrinated. You have the evolution theory being taught in schools. We're going to go into, I don't know if you guys saw this, there's a quick link here we're going to read about books that are found in libraries that are, I can't say the word because YouTube will censor this video. It's pretty horrific with some of these books that are being found in libraries. We're going to go in here. It's horrific. It happened right here in Florida. So it's talking about how we should be able to think for ourselves. I agree. Kids should be able to think. If you're going to teach evolution in schools, you should teach evolution and creation science. You either teach both or you teach none. And that way you let the child think for himself. If he wants to believe that we evolved from rocks, that's what the evolution teaches, that we're millions of years old and we just evolved from rocks. You can believe that. Or we can say, hey, you were created. You were created for great things. You're special. So you can teach both sides. That's what I think you should do. Either teach both or you teach none. Because evolution isn't science, it's a religion. This effort may well divide child from parent, not because socialist educators want to indoctrinate children, they're indoctrinating, but because learning to think for oneself is what children do. When do the interests of parents and children diverge? Generally, it occurs when a parent's desire to inculcate a particular worldview denies the child exposure to other ideas and values that an independent young person might wish to embrace or at least entertain. To turn over all decisions to parents then would risk inhibiting the ability of young people to think independently. That's not true. All we're saying is let's have different perspectives taught in schools. Let's, at the end of the day, kids, when they're young, they need help thinking on the certain right topic. So parents should come in, just like you have these organizations, the over-governing body of the school system. You have a select group of elites telling what to put in these curriculums. So parents like me and others should be able to say, hey, let's look at this curriculum and let's see if this is right for our kids. And let's sit down and think and have a conversation on what we should put in, what we shouldn't. As a political scientist, Rob Reich has argued minimal autonomy requires, especially for its civic importance, that a child be able to examine his or her own political values and beliefs and those of others with a critical eye. If we value that end, the structure of schooling cannot simply replicate in every particularly the values and beliefs of a child's home. The law has long reflected this. Consider homeschooling. Although it is legal across the country, states still regulate its practice. Such regulations often aren't enforced, but they are actually on the books. Homeschooling parents can be required to establish minimal academic qualifications, to submit examples of student work to school district administrators, or even to adopt a state-approved curriculum. And that's the thing. Again, you can have a private education. This is the education that my kids are being taught, and this is called the Becca Program, and they teach it from a Christian curriculum. It's a Christian point of view, and they don't teach evolution, all this garbage. It teaches, hey, you kids are special, you were created for greatness, and it's just a different point of view. And sure, this is regulated to some point to the state, but it's nice knowing that, hey, I have options. And that's what this is all about. I should be able to stick my school in, or my child in school, and I pay taxes. I should get to choose if my child gets to go here or they get to go here. If you can't choose, then it's indoctrinated. And that's what these schools are. They're indoctrination camps. There is no doubt as to the power of a state having a high responsibility for education of its citizens, to impose reasonable regulations for the control and duration of basic education. And as the court made clear in an earlier case, Pierce versus Society of Sisters, the state concerns itself not just with the well-being of the child, but also with the justices broadly called the public welfare. The sudden push for parental rights then isn't a response to substantive changes in education or law, it's a political tactic. And we're not going to go and read the rest of this article, but you can just see, this is what I love about this. Here's the last point I wanted to read. It says, courts have found that parents have great authority when it comes to deciding how to raise and educate their children. This right, however, does not mean that public schools must cater to parents' individuals' ideas about education. Parents can opt out of the public system if they wish and pay to send their children to private or religious schools. And yes, why should I have to pay though? Why can't I just use my tax dollars? There's a guy I talked to recently. He wants to put his child in a public or in a private school, but it was too much money. These schools are super expensive. So why do I have to take my tax dollars for the public when I should just stick them in a private school? That's the way it should be. So I think the socialization of schools is bad, and I should get to choose where my child goes. And so that's my issue with this article. But this confirms what I've been talking about the last year long, that you don't have a say and schools are just indoctrination camps. And look at this. This is horrific. This happened 2 days ago. I can't talk about this book in detail, but just look at this article. This happened right here in Florida. Orange County Public Schools reviewing controversial book pulled from shelves. And you can read about this, and there's actually a video of this guy. He stands up for 2 or 3 minutes talking about excerpts from this book, and it's hardcore. Just go read it. Just take my word for it and read about this. I can't read it on this YouTube channel because they'll censor it. But it's like, why are these books being leaked into the library system? Who's checking this stuff? So we have schools, as this article confirms, everything's being indoctrinated. There's books that are getting in that are, have no business being there, and they should be banned, in my opinion. And then we also have evolution being taught in schools. And look at this article. Why teach evolution? And they teach this stuff as fact. And evolution is a religion. Evolutionists, atheists, they hate it when I say that, but evolution is a religion. You believe that you evolved from a rock, and that's what this teaches. And, we teach kids through kindergarten, first grade, middle school, high school, and we teach that we're just an animal, we're not special, and then we wonder why kids run around and act like animals. It's because we're taught that our entire lives. Check this out. Why teach evolution? From the early 20th century onward, teaching biological evolution in the public schools has been a contentious issue. Although a series of federal court decisions has upheld the proper place of biological evolution in the curriculum, the struggle over evolution as the curriculum continues. See, I'm not against science. Science should be observable. That's what science is. It should be teachable. But evolution, they teach this stuff as fact. It's not. It never happened. It's a fairy tale. Recent conflicts over the content of science education standards in many states have arisen precisely because evolution was awarded its proper status as the fundamental theoretical construct underpinning modern biology. They say it's theoretical, but this is all they teach in all the schools. Why does teaching evolution remain so socially and politically controversial? Is it fair to teach only evolution in public schools? Does this policy help or does it harm the students in these schools? Definitely harms them. In the biological sciences, evolution is a theory of change that accounts for the pattern of similarities and differences among living things on Earth throughout the Earth's history and across all the habitants and biomes that exist or have existed in that history. Evolution is a theory of emergence of new varieties of life forms, not a theory of origins that accounts for how life began. There are currently a number of proposed models and hypotheses for the beginning of life as we know it. But evolution begins after life is established on Earth. And I love this excerpt. What about macroevolution? Scientists use the terms macroevolution and microevolution to describe different perspectives on life's history, not fundamentally different processes. Macroevolution describes the result of evolutionary changes we can observe over time in response to mass extinctions, global climate changes, and other large-scale events that affect the abundance and distribution of species. So let me go ahead and define this for you. You have macroevolution. That's saying that dogs produce zebras. That's never observed. And then you have microevolution. And I'm careful to use that word microevolution because that's just variations within a gene code. So if you look at dogs, you have short-haired, long-haired dogs. If you look at people, we have brown hair, black hair, blonde hair. You have blue eyes, brown eyes. Those are variations within the gene code. If you go read the book of Genesis, in the very first chapter, it says 10 to 15 times animals will bring forth after their kind. And that's the difference. Macroevolution says that dogs produce zebras and birds produce mosquitoes. That's what that means. That's never been observed, but you can observe the micro aspect, and the Bible tells us that you will see variations within the gene code. If you look at a lion, a tiger, and a panther, you can look at those and say, hey, these are cats. They belong in the cat family. But they'll go ahead and add a giraffe in there or a zebra and say, hey, these all evolved from each other. That's religion. You don't see that. So that's my whole point. On the macro scale, it's not observed. But on a micro scale, the Bible teaches that animals will bring forth after their kind. That's what it says. Macroevolution is what we see in the fossil record as forms of life change over one geological time to another, and we see organisms that share features both with organisms that appeared earlier in time and also with organisms that emerged later. These transitional states show the continuity between groups of organisms. So the transitional fossils, I'd like to see them. I can't remember his name, but I watched this video once, and I'll get it. I'll post it below. But it's a leading evolutionist, and this guy has thousands of fossils, and he says there are no transitional forms. So I want to know, where are all the transitional forms? If humans evolved, or monkeys evolved, or cats or dogs, if these things evolved into other species, where are the transitional fossils? And if you're watching this video and you're probably hating on right now, you believe in evolution, I want to know, what evidence do you have for transitional fossils? Go ahead and post it below. I want to see it. So in macroevolution, we focus on patterns of evolutionary changes that occur between species, while in microevolution, we focus on patterns of evolutionary changes that occur within species and evolving lineages. So that's the micro scale, saying, hey, we have long-haired dogs, short-haired dogs, you have long-haired rabbits, short-haired rabbits, but there comes to a point where they can no longer interbreed. If you have Alaskan rabbits and they try to breed with Florida rabbits, it can't happen. There's only certain limitations that can happen. You'll never have a dog the size of Texas. You never have a dog the size of a mosquito. There's certain limitations that happen there. And we see this on a microevolution, but there's limitations. We focus on patterns of evolutionary changes that occur within species and evolving lineages. These two terms refer to different perspectives on the process of evolutionary change, but not to fundamentally different processes. And this just goes on and on. We'll read one more excerpt here. Why is evolution mandated in science education standards? There are two main reasons that biological evolution is mandated in science education standards. First, it is a fundamental it's very unifying, theory that underlies all the life sciences. It has formed the basis of productive, and listen to this date here. It has formed the basis of productive and active research for over 140 years and continues to do so. So this is a relatively new religion. Yes, evolution is a religion. Before Darwin's time, creation was taught in schools. And then he comes along and then they slowly fade that out. Charles Huxley, they start to bring that stuff in. Charles Darwin, they bring that stuff in. And they phased out creation science. That's what was mainly taught. And they just shoved that out and put this new stuff in. This is why evolution is universally accepted among professional biology researchers. The second reason is that science education standards emphasize learning the process of science and especially scientific inquiry. The first step in this process is to develop testable. If you're an evolutionist, you're watching this, what testable evidence do we have of macroevolution? I've never seen a dog produce a zebra. I've never seen a cat produce a giraffe. That's what you guys believe. Comment below. I want to see where that's testable. You can't see it. These questions are guided by scientific theories, and their answers continue to show the value of biological evolution as a theory for forming useful, answerable questions in biology. And you can read the rest of this stuff. That's all I just kind of wanted to get through today. But this is a spiritual battle. This is the worldly battle against the spiritual battle. That's what this is all about. Is this worldly stuff. See, I live by a motto. It's observe the masses and do the opposite. And that's what we need to do. Is we need to get this stuff out of schools. And I'm going to start getting involved more locally here and see if there's a way we can get this stuff out of schools. Because this is a religion, and I'm not against science. I love science. It's my one of my favorite topics to talk to. I think it's cool to talk about the animals and the earth and all the ecosystems, how they work with each other. That's fine. But as soon as you start inserting millions of years and evolution in there, it's turned into a religion. That's no longer science. It's not observable. It's not testable. That's what it's all about. So, in my videos, I always like to talk about Romans 10, 9, and 10. If you're not a Christian, this is how you do it. I know this is a little off topic, but I think it's important to talk about what's going on in the school system. And we need parents. We should be able to be involved and talk about these things. And hey, if I want to put my child in a different school, I should be allowed to do that as well. But if you're not a Christian, you're watching this and you're wondering how to do it, this is how you do it. This is Romans 10, 9, and 10. It says, if thou shalt confess with thy mouth the Lord Jesus, and shalt believe in thine heart that God hath raised him from the dead, thou shalt be saved. For with the heart man believeth unto righteousness, with the mouth confession is made unto salvation. So this is called the sinner's prayer, and it's just a super simple prayer you say out loud. You say, hey, Jesus, I'm a sinner. I want you to come into my life, take over. I believe you died on the cross for my sins. I believe in your birth, your crucifixion, your resurrection. And Lord, I want to be with you in heaven when I die. And that's all you have to do. It's a super simple prayer. And then go start growing. That's what you want to do, is you want to go grab a Bible. Start with the New Testament. You have the Old Testament. That stands for Old Covenant. And the New Testament, that's for the New Covenant. That's for what we have now, is Jesus. That's what we celebrate. So you have Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are the four Gospels. And then I always like starting with the book of John. It'll start from his birth, his crucifixion, to his resurrection. Really interesting. I think it's one of the best places to start when you're reading the Bible. So that's it. I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Those are the best things you can do to get the channel to grow. And pray for me actually this week. I'm actually teaching a Bible lesson at my Sunday school this week. It's my first time doing it, so I'm super excited. I was approached today at church. So be praying for me this week, and then we'll see you guys next week. Appreciate it. See y'all next time.